Well, the second week of the World Cup was, a slow one with all those games rained out. But there was one big story that of the AB DeVilliers selection, non-selection, retirement, non-retirement. What did you make of all of that?
I was a fan of AB DeVilliers. I'm pretty disappointed with his statements off the field of late. I think this story coming out, I don't know who leaked it, I don't know how it happened, is an absolute distraction for a team that is already struggling in the World Cup. So clearly the timing was not right. Um, AB de Villiers
Was it the right decision?
to go to not let him come into the World Cup.
Yeah, to not let
100%.
him come in.
100% it was the right decision. I mean, it's for me, it's ridiculous from AB de Villiers, right? You retire from all sorts of international cricket for your own reasons, right? You're tired. Your heart's not in the game. You want to pick and choose the leagues you want to play in. You want to stay at home, presumably, but then you go around and you play under with every league under the sun, and that's your right. I have no criticisms there. This is their bread and butter. They have absolute right to go wherever they want. Same case with these Pack players. I don't blame them at all. Now, having
So
said that,
wouldn't he make them a better team if he was there?
but it's not a one man team, right? Cricket is not tennis.
But,
Cricket is
but
not
if
even
he would make
basketball.
them a better team, why is it the right decision not to
But
pick
I
him?
don't think he would have made them the better team. You don't. It's not a superstar sport. That's my perspective. Number one, there has to be a certain level of cohesion that comes in. Think about think about, sorry, Smith and Warner coming in, right? They absolutely made Australia a better team, but there was so much debate around, you know, um, is it the right move to make? How would other players react? What would be their level of motivation with these two players who are tainted coming back in? And then Australia went through a process with Warner and Smith. You saw them come in, have a chat with Justin Langer, meet up with Aaron Finch. Um, even meet up with the team in the net sessions, first come in and play some net sessions out, and then slowly and gradually get into the team. It wasn't as if 1 week before the World Cup all of a sudden they're announced to the team. It took 6 to 8 months for them to be reintegrated, and that's absolutely right. You can't just think that, oh, today I feel like playing the World Cup because all eyes are on that tournament, and you know what, I'm just going to call the captain, the selector, and make myself available and get slotted in. I don't care how big a
I think Smith and Warner is a good example, and here's my take on it. One, obviously, he left for personal reasons, mainly being financial. South African Cricket Board is one of the worst payers when it comes to central contracts. I think even the Pakistan central contracts pay more than the South African central contracts. And as a athlete, he has a 4 to 10 maximum year window to really earn at his peak, at his prime. For the rest of us, especially those who are in the professional environment, we could earn for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So it's easy for us to say, right? So he's dropped out because he wants to earn more money for himself and his family. I think I agree with you on that he has absolute right to do that. Um, and he said that, as a result, he's retiring from international cricket, or basically he's not going to be available for the South African international bilateral series. Now, the World Cup came around, he had to change, and he wanted to play. I think so. There's two things for me. One, international bilateral cricket, I think playing it or not playing it should not be confused for any player's patriotism or lack of it. I mean, cricket is one of those few sports where you have a lot of you have a lot of international series and a lot of international assignments. I mean, look at football. International football is only every 2 years, every 4 years when you have the World Cups. Apart from that, everyone plays for their club. Their clubs pay them, and they know that's where their bread is buttered, and that's where their priorities are, and no one questions it. Teams come into, and if there's no question of cohesion or non-cohesion, if you're a star, you make your team better. And I think he would have made the team better. And I think sometimes, yes, you do bend the rules a little bit for the star players. The other thing is, I think when boards thing, nobody minds. So the West Indies Cricket Board called in Chris Gale. He never said he was retired, but they just didn't want to select him because they said you have to play domestic cricket, you have to have a central contract, and he didn't want to have those. But they said, okay, we think we can use you for the World Cup. We're going to call you up one series before. So they called him up for the England home series. Pakistan has done this with Imran Khan in the past. And Australia just did it with Smith and Warner. Obviously, it wasn't retirement, but they were banned. But the board banned them, and the board said, yes, we are making a decision that we will call you back in before the World Cup because you're good enough. And everyone's okay with it. But now, when a player wants to take his career and his decision into his own hands, everyone's up in arms. No one likes it. So I think it's unfair, and it's unfair on him. Would it have been unfair on a player that would have been dropped? Yeah, fine. But this is international sport. I mean, it's not the second grade where you're getting medals for participation. So if he wanted to play, if they made a decision, I mean, if they thought, okay, he add to the team from a bat, just from the perspective of his batsmanship, fair enough. But if they thought he's a good enough batsman to add value, I think some rules should have been bent. Yeah, some feelings would have been hurt, but I would have picked him. He's AB DeVilliers.
Yeah, I can't get on board with that, and it has nothing to do with patriotism. I think it could be any team. It could be a privately owned team, a state team, whatever you may have it.
No,
I
but
think
there's
one
this
week
there's always this
before the
narrative
World
when
Cup.
people don't play those bilateral series,
No,
people
I,
question
I, no,
their
no, no.
commitment, their patriotism.
Yeah, yeah.
He doesn't want to play for his country. Uh,
Yeah, I don't buy into that either, right? Like that's not the reason why I'm criticizing AB DeVilliers or his decision. It's more the timing that I'm criticizing. There are ways to navigate around not playing for your country over a period of time and then still wanting to be integrated into major tournaments. There are ways that you can manage that with the board. You need to preempt it a little bit. I think coming in 1 week before the World Cup squad announcement and saying that, hey, I want to come in, is in my mind just not productive. It's not productive for a team that's being built up. It's not productive for the captain or even the coaching staff, right? Like how do you just slot back in? There are game plans that you've put in place. There are roles in the team that you've assigned, and then you want to just throw caution to the wind and get in a player because he in the 11th hour decided that he wants to show up for a tournament. I don't think that makes sense. I feel that it's counterproductive to the team and South Africa. Maybe ABWers would have come in and scored a century. I don't know, but as a team, they would have been poorer. That's my perspective.
I think fair enough, but I think when you have talent like AB DeVilliers at hand, you make it work. I mean, in general, with any sport, I've always been a big believer in making the talent work for you.
And by the way,
Uh,
that also I'll question that as well. AB de Villiers is a phenomenal player. We all know that. The 360-degree tag that he has that for a reason. I don't think he's necessarily a big match player. Where he's not in the league of Kohli, he's not someone who can literally come in and win you games from the jaws of defeat. So honestly, if had AB de Villiers been there, and would South Africa have been in a remarkably different position? I have my doubts.
well, that brings an end to this week's episode. We hope you'll tune in again next week, right here on The Leading Edge.